What follows is a biography of James William Shanks, lawyer and politician in Sumrall, Mississippi at the beginning of the 20th century. His father left the family homestead in Alabama before the Civil War and moved to Mississippi where his uncle, James Christopher Shanks, was a respected Methodist minister. John Shanks began as a teacher and later married one of his students, Mary Jane Quinley. He was soon running a farm near Shubuta in Clark County and running for local office. John and Mary Shanks had 10 children, of which James William, who came to be called J.W., was the seventh oldest, born in April 24, 1869. He grew up educated, which must be due to his mother because James was only 12 when his father died in 1881 and was one of 8 children still living at home on the farm with their widowed mother during the difficult post-Reconstruction era in Mississippi. By 1900, almost the entire family had moved away from Clark County to other parts of Mississippi and Louisiana. J.W. married Minnie Elnora Baylis on January 17, 1894. She was the daughter of one of the richest families in Jones County. Her father, John McCormack Baylis, was a planter, politician, doctor, Civil War veteran, and had been dead 9 years at her marriage. Upon their marriage, the couple was given some land in Jones County, and their first son, James DeWitt, was born in 1895. An article in the New Orleans Times-Picayune from March 8, 1895 reported the adjournment the Ellisville Chancery Court.
Several important cases were disposed of. A Negro by the name of Charlie Ballard was admitted to bail on a writ of habeas corpus, having been committed without bail charged with the murder of Thomas Wade, a white man who was killed about 2 months ago in this county. Ballard was represented by W Shanks, Esq.
J.W. was also working as a journalist as well in those years besides studying for the law. He was a Mississippi stringer for the Daily Picayune in New Orleans, sending telegram reports for 50 cents per special. The Biloxi Herald of November 28, 1896 noted that J.W. and J. Frank Merritt converted the newspaper, the Ellisville Patriot, into the Jones County Leader and would publish it as a Democratic paper. It's not certain why, but 2 years later, J.W. moved Minnie and their son to Abbeville, Louisiana, where he found employment as a lawyer, teacher and school principal. Minnie's brother, Dr. Gene Baylis, was an peripatetic physician who plied his trade across southern Louisiana and East Texas. The Abbeville Meridional, February 5, 1898 has 2 separate notes on the same day. 1.
J.W. Shanks of Ellisville, Miss, a leading young attorney, is here on a prospecting tour and will probably locate here. 2. Dr. E.H. Baylis of St. Martinville was over this week prospecting, and we understand that he has decided to locate at Abbeville and practice his profession.
The February 5, 1898 Meridional has an ad for
J. W. Shanks, attorney at law, an agent for the Mutual Life Insurance Company of New York, Abbeville, Louisiana office with M.T. Gordy.
The New Orleans Times-Picayune from April 13, 1900 reported on a political rally at Perry's Bridge in Abbeville.
J. W. Shanks was called upon and addressed the audience in a few words, urging the voters to be true to their pledge and support the nominees on the 17th of April, and thereby approve of the administration of the party that had reclaimed the state from Negro domination.
The November 2, 1901 Meridional reported successful examinations for licenses to teach school and noted
Superintendent Kitchell was ably assisted by Professor J. W. Shanks in conducting the examination.
Older brother John Chandler Shanks came to visit and met his future wife Kate Chevis, who was a teacher on the faculty of J.W. School. In 1901, in Abbeville, James and Minnie suffered the tragedy of a child's death at birth. Infant Shanks died on April 5 and is buried at the Old Masonic Cemetery in Abbeville. Not long after, they moved back to Jones, and during this short stay Jesse William Shanks, Sr. was born in Easterbuchy, a little hamlet on the southwest corner of the county near the Leaf River, only a few miles up the road from Hattiesburg. Minnie Elnora's father, Dr. Baylis, and many of his family are buried at the Easterbuchy Cemetery. In 1874, the doctor had floated his house down the Leaf River from where it had been located near Eatonville prior to the Civil War and placed it not far from where Highway 11 now runs between Hattiesburg and Ellisville. The house survived for some years, recently as an antique store, but is gone as of 2011, destroyed by Hurricane Katrina. The Jones County dockets from September 1906 shows J.W. Shanks as the attorney of record for 2 local couples seeking divorce decrees. J.W. and Minnie would soon move west to Sumrall in Lamar County and take up residence on Poplar Street, while he began a country law practice with a few forays into politics. Sumrall was one of many new towns incorporated along the Mississippi Central Railroad during the first decade of the 20th century. Prior to the arrival of the railroad, founder Daniel Sumrall operated a grist mill along Mill Creek. In 1890, the federal government established a post office in the community and named it Sumrall. Daughter Minnie Maud was born in 1906, brother Howard was born 3 years later in 1909, and the youngest son Eugene Baylis was born in 1913. Later, during World War I, J.W. was a legal advisor to the parole board in Lamar County and would see his oldest son DeWitt drafted into the conflict. The Hattiesburg American from July 2, 1911 reported the appearance of Theodore G. Bilbo before an enthusiastic audience of 500 in Sumrall on his campaign for lieutenant governor. He was introduced by J.W. Shanks to give his more than 2-hour and 30-minute oration. Bilbo would later be an important figure in the life of Jesse W. Shanks Sr. The Jackson Daily News from July 12, 1912 reported a big criminal docket.
The State vs. Tom Tyson, criminal assault was detailed, continuing, arraigned in plea of not guilty made. Court appointed Messrs. J.W. Shanks J.T. Garraway, attorneys of Sumrall, Mississippi, to represent defendant in the trial, which will probably come up the latter part of this week. This is the case in which the Negro, Tom Tyson, is charged with raping his 8-year-old stepdaughter at his home, near Sumrall, about 2 months ago.
In 1920, J.W. was the census enumerator for Beat 5 of Lamar County, representing Sumrall City. Starting on January 2, 1920 and over the next 22 days, J.W. interviewed and counted his neighbors and also came across several future family relations. On page 11 from the 6th of January, he visits the family of William H. Ward, 42, master mechanic, machinist on Main Street. Living there is wife Elizabeth, 44, wife, her mother is French from Alsace-Lorraine, and sons Henry, 19, and Leo, 16, both machinists in sawmill, most likely the Newman operation. Also present are younger sons Lawrence, 13, and James, 9. Young Leo would marry Itasca Redmond in 1925. Her younger sister Pearl would marry Jesse William Shanks. The Redmond family headed up by Jeff F. Redmond, 38, labourer, sawmill, and his wife, Minnie E, 31 on page 27, 21st of Jan contains Nellie M. 15, Itasca 14, Pearl 6 and baby Jack F. at 5 months. They also live on Main. St. Nellie Redmond went to Sumrall High School with Jesse. Page 19 from the 16th day of January contains Minnie's father and Pearl's grandfather Thomas Goodwin, 57, stationary engineer, and his wife Mary I, 45, along with children Carrie, 21, Grady, 16, a sawmill labourer, and sister-in-law Ellen Hicks. Overall, J.W. Shanks would practice law in Lamar County for over 30 years. In 1947, son Jesse W. Shanks told a reporter from the New Orleans Times some details about a peculiar legal event involving his father J.W. Shanks in Lamar County called the 1920 all-woman jury case, which featured Mississippi's first all-woman jury. Apparently 2 red-headed widows of Sumrall each simultaneously claimed a certain pig as her own one day. When the suit came to trial before Justice Cox, the plaintiff was represented by Judge W. J. Hatton, the defendant by J. W. Shanks. Justice Cox, refusing to try the case without a jury, declared, "I was the original advocate of suffrage in these parts and I now propose a woman jury because of the female litigants." After some disagreement about the legality of such a panel, the lawyers agreed to try the case and accept the verdict of the female jury. 6 women were immediately sworn in, and the trial began. One of the 6 was Mrs. John S. Adams, another was Miss Nellie McPherson. After due deliberation, the jury found for the defendant, redhead number 2. The Sumrall courthouse burned down in 1934 and records of this historic case were destroyed. Among those who have vouched for the face that the case actually occurred were the late Judge Stone Devers of Laurel, jurist and historian, and Jesse W. Shanks, Purvis attorney, son of the counsel for the defendant, who had followed his father to court that day. During the 1920s, Eugene Bertrand Shanks, J.W.'s brother, was a crusading editor and politician fighting against the influence of the Ku Klux Klan. He had support from many of the other editors in towns in Louisiana. A letter to the editor of the Abbeville Meridional from J.W. Shanks was printed on April 7, 1923, and he recounted his own life in Abbeville.
"I lived in your interesting little city 5 years, one of which I was principal of your high school, and the other 4 practicing law, and my memory reverts back to some very warm friends in Abbeville and Vermilion Parish, a great many of whom have crossed over to the great beyond.
He continues.
I have been practicing law at this place 18 years, and my wife and I are the glad parents of 5 very interesting children, 1 in Oklahoma City, 1 at Millsaps College, Jackson, Mississippi, and 3 in high school, at Sumrall, Miss.
He concludes with the reason for writing.
In common with you and my brother at DeQuincy, I view with alarm the evil influences of the Ku Klux Klan, where they are strong enough to carry out their nefarious practices, and I am proud to note the opposition to the Klan by the best people of your great state. A great majority of the best people in Mississippi are unalterably against an invisible empire, and the mask and hood must go.
The Biloxi Daily Herald of February 25, 1932 records J.W. as a speaker in Jackson in favor of attacks to black schools in Mississippi, among other speakers including Lieutenant Governor Dennis Murphy, later Governor of Mississippi twice, Representative Walter Sillars, and Mississippi House Speaker Tom Bailey, who also later was Governor of Mississippi. Later in 1932 was the marriage of daughter Minnie Maud to Charles Mellon Lee of Birmingham, Alabama. He was a veteran of World War I with the U.S. Army with the headquarters company of the 149th Field Artillery. The Hattiesburg American of June 6 reported that the couple has been entertained at a number of lovely parties. On June 7, the paper reported on a delightful kitchen shower given in honor of Miss Minnie Maud Shanks, and noted it was one of the loveliest affairs of the season. The wedding took place at the Baptist Church in Sumrall, and the couple left for the Gulf Coast and other points, after which they will be at home in Birmingham, Alabama. The August 16, 1938 edition of the Hattiesburg American records that J.W. was chosen as an election official in Sumrall. Interestingly, the other election manager listed is Mrs. J.F. Redmond, who is Minnie Redmond, the mother of his daughter-in-law Pearl, married to his son Jesse. In October of 1938, J.W. Shanks died suddenly at his home in Sumrall and would not live to see his son elected to the Mississippi legislature as the state representative from Lamar County. Remembered as a prominent lawyer and pioneer citizen of Sumrall, J.W. is buried at East Abuche Cemetery, and Sumrall city officials and members of the Sumrall Bar served as honorary pallbearers. His wife Minnie would move to Birmingham, Alabama to live with daughter Minnie Maud and her husband Charles Mellon Lee and die in 1943. She is buried with her husband in East Abuche, not far from where her father and mother and other Bailey's kin are buried.